The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend edition is here. It's Hail Varsity, and always great to be joined by Mark Kraynak and Elijah Herbel. Chris Schmidt. Guys, been an eventful week in Husker Nation on the recruiting front. We'll spend plenty of time with that. We'll run down Brandon Vogel and spend some time with the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. You're always welcome to interact with us on the StreamYard, and ways to do that pretty simple. You can jump in with the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. That's where we're airing. Also, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. And, of course, KFOR Facebook, KFOR Sports Facebook, and then KFOR Sports Twitter. Guys, how we doing? Good week? Stressful week? I'm trying to get banned from the neighborhood already because the German Shepherd is out on the warpath, and she is trying to wake up every neighbor. Now, most of my neighbors get it, which is great because they have dogs too. The guy behind us, though, quick story. So when we adopted,
let's hear about him.
When we adopted Gertie, she's a German Shepherd, and Gertie's probably about 4.5 years old. We adopted her from Capital Humane Society, and every Thursday on KFOR mornings, they'll bring in a pup to profile, right?
Yeah.
They'll bring the pup into 1011. They'll bring the pup into KFOR, and we get to see sweet pups, pups that need homes. And the running joke was, as an incentive-based way to get Junior to get off his tush and perform a little better at the plate during travel ball, I mistakenly uttered, "Hey, if you get a hit here in a 2-out runners in scoring position situation, I'll get you a German Shepherd." Just because his average wasn't so great.
Right.
And then, lo and behold, a week later.
Was he above the Mendoza? Was he above the Mendoza line, or was he teetering on it?
Hard to say. No, he was well below it, looking up like he was in a well, staring up. But so he got a hit. Yeah. It was awesome. Fate would have it that there's a German Shepherd that comes in a week later. Lo and behold, Gertie is brought into the family. Well, Gertie's always been a little high-strung, one of those pups that got returned or had to be surrendered by her owner because he was an older gentleman that had to move into a facility. So,
and Germans need to have a job. German Shepherds in particular.
Yes,
they
Germans
need to have
Germans too. Germans too.
They're a lot of engineering. They like to do that.
Right.
In the wise words of the ShamWow guy, the Germans make good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, they do.
But our neighbor,
Germans make good stuff.
But our neighbor came over 2 weeks after she moved in with us, and knocked on my door. It's a Sunday afternoon, and he was calm. He was polite, but he just started in on, "Can you do something about your dog?" There's 40 dogs around us in our neighborhood. And he picked the wrong time to do it because he showed up when my wife got home from a long shift. And she's like, what are you, "Hey, nice to meet you. What's going on? What can we help you with?" "Well, your dog just seems to bark all." So ever since then, it's been silence.
Did she give
staring.
it to him?
A little bit.
Did she?
Uh-huh. Now, I will say this. Their backyard looks similar to our backyard, with some of the style of landscaping. Looks a lot better than our backyard in terms of some of the landscaping, because their trees survive. Ours do not for whatever reason. So
we'll talk about that. There's a lot of factors.
It's not quite a Colorado-Nebraska situation. Certainly not a Nebraska-Oklahoma situation. But it's probably closer to Nebraska, Iowa in our little property line.
Oh, so you're having a little rivalry on landscaping, but
a little bit, and he's won 7 in a row. But I think right now, the way things look this spring, we're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah. Rick in the stream says, tell him to get some earplugs. See, I'm picturing this guy. Is he one of those guys that can't sleep well? Kind of like, in Alaska when it's daylight for like 2 weeks at a time and people kind of go crazy and then they have the blackout blinds and then they're just kind of laying there in bed and they just can't sleep because of the thing. Like, I feel like this guy has these problems and he's just really struggling with it. And then Chris froze to ruin the banter. Oh, now he's back.
He's got 2 little kids that are sweet kids that have a little bit of a tree house. And I don't know if they pimp Gertie a little bit or not. And that's okay. Kids can do that. But
kids can pimp Germans, in the wise words of Chris Schmidt.
I do know that he has a lot of tank tops and wears flat bill caps backwards.
I am trying to figure out what it's got to be like for anybody who is like sipping on their morning coffee at home right now, expecting some Husker talk, and they open up this show and it is Schmitty's neighbors and the German Shepherds, and
it got related
back to the flat bill. Let's get back to the flat bill.
Got related back to football. It's kind of an Iowa-Nebraska border rivalry.
I guess.
Now, hold on. The tank tops, too. Are these affliction tank tops? Are they no-fear tank tops?
No, they're not either. They're just
shark attack.
Solid in color. There may be a little surf life deal. And I'll say this: he spends time at the gym.
Some Hurley. He's got some Hurley.
Possibly. But no, he spends some time at the gym.
Okay.
So there's no ink though on him.
Okay. So you're sitting here fantasizing over your neighbor's pipes, and he's pissed about your dog.
Yes, and it was off on the wrong foot.
I want to move into the neighborhood just to sit on the deck and observe all this happen.
Oh, I was texted last night as I was at the bar with some friends. Shocking, and
you drink a lot too. This is great. We're just gonna make this the Chris hour. This is great.
We will get to football, I promise. But no, she's still going bat bleep out there. And I'll let her in here in a minute. But no, it was funny. I got the text message from the lovely wife. She's like, yeah, our neighbor has friends out and over. He's throwing some sort of party. I'm like, well, don't do it. Please be respectful. What do I
stick Gertie on him?
She let the dogs out.
So it ruined their Nickelback on the Bluetooth?
It might have been.
They're like, that dog came out right during photograph. Damn it.
That's so good.
Damn it. They've been looking forward to that for months.
Started again.
They were going to sing it.
Well, so that's what's going on this morning. It's been a busy week, man. Monday, Iola and his commitment to Georgia. I know it's been an ongoing saga similar to the Hatfield-McCoy relationship in the Schmidt neighborhood.
We got to discuss some of that, by the way.
Let's do it right now. It's been enough story time. 9 minutes of your Saturday wasted on my neighbor. Forgive me.
No,
but I just had a little confession time to do that. I'm not going to ask for advice. I just got to be a better neighbor. That's the point of it.
No. But you got to give the German Shepherd a job. I don't know what that
I
job
do.
Would be.
And
let it hurt.
Moonbot's good. No, her job is to play fetch. I mean, I go out there every day between the morning show and the afternoon show, and if it doesn't suck outside or there's no lightning, we're playing football.
So one out of 9 days, you're able to do that?
No, I try and do it consecutively.
Because we have crappy weather, is what I'm saying.
Well, she doesn't really care. I mean, we'll play fetch is the point.
Yeah. Has she worn out a track around the perimeter of your?
She's worn out the back door because she gets on her back legs and opens doors.
Yeah. Yep.
See, yeah,
she opens doors.
Smart.
Yeah, she's great.
Very
she's
smart.
Sweet. You see her occasionally. She'll make her appearance around 8:00, likely this morning, and she'll jump in my lap and want to be on camera. Let's get into recruiting here. We're not shocked about Dylan Raiola's decision. I don't want to say shocked, but I'm pleasantly surprised for Nebraska fans about Daniel Kaelin and his decommitment from Missouri because of how much time he has spent with Missouri. I mean, just away from his normal setup and routine in Omaha with his training schedule. And he's been doing a lot of stuff with Missouri, but pretty awesome for Nebraska as the predictor machine for a lot of the recruiting services. I mean, they're all in. We're talking mid-90 percentile projection Kaelin to Nebraska. And
we're talking Daniel Kaelin, quarterback for Bellevue West, he was offered by Frost as a freshman. Was that right?
2 years ago. Yeah, he's going to be a senior. So, as a freshman, Verduzco offered him. And he split time as
Chris cutting out a little bit. Split time as a starter as a sophomore, I believe it was. Took over the full-time job at Bellevue West last year. Of course, Bellevue West, prolific offense, very wide receiver-centric.
Skill guys are incredible.
Yeah, they churn those guys out like crazy. Real quick, though, getting back to Dylan Raiola. Raiola. I knew that from Dom. There is some talk. Now, how do you take, if you're a Nebraska fan, how do you take a kid like Raiola, so high profile, coming to Nebraska basketball games, right? Throwing up the bones. The fans are cheering him on. Really unique situation. Or going to attending a Nebraska baseball game and getting a lot of praise and attention there. Visiting Nebraska multiple times. Posting photos with like a Nebraska boombox down in Texas or Arizona where he was getting some workouts in. You could, as a Nebraska fan, view him doing all that only to spurn Nebraska and go to Georgia. You could look at that as, here's a kid that is just trying to get a bunch of attention, get the clout, get the followers that comes along with Nebraska, because Nebraska fans, newsflash, kind of weird. We're kind of crazy in a good way, right? I didn't mean that in a bad way, but a little over the top, a little will follow recruits, will give them attention. Like they ask for it and Nebraska fans line up for it, right?
Yep.
So you could view it as, what's up with that? Why string Nebraska along? And only to, like, if you knew all along you weren't going to do it, or, just picking up, like, why even go through that mess? Like, that's kind of lowbrow. But I think in this case, I wonder if you all agree here. I think he actually did Nebraska a solid.
Yeah.
Did his dad a solid. Truly does like the Nebraska program. Grew up liking it, right? Has a certain reverence and respect for it. And then, if nothing else, what he did is draw attention to Nebraska with other elite recruits. He had that halo effect, right? Been here multiple times. So all of a sudden, receivers, offensive linemen, other players who know about him, that whole real, recognize real, game, recognize game, they see him giving Nebraska a serious look and liking it. All of a sudden, their eyes open up to it. And then Matt Rule and company have a chance to impress those guys too. So I think so on the surface, you could look at it as, it's an attention-seeking guy. Why would he do that? I think he was somewhat calculated. I think he really considered Nebraska. And I think he also just wants them to do well, right? Wants Nebraska to do well, wanted to give them this attention. But ultimately just picked a place that's pretty tough to argue with right now. I mean, look, if you have your pick of the litter and you got Kirby Smart, one of the better recruiters out there, saying that you're his guy for a 2-time defending national champ in the Atlanta area, I mean, that's a little, I don't know, man. If you're going to lose to them. If Nebraska had lost out to Tulsa, different story. But, I mean,
sure.
It's Georgia. It's Georgia. It makes sense. He's elite. He wants to go play with other elite players. You can't fault him.
Like, let's be honest. You look at Georgia, USC, and Nebraska. Nebraska's the ugly duckling there. Like, we can all see that.
Right. Who does not belong?
Do you have a date for my friend? Right.
Right. Yeah. Who does not belong at that point? But here's the thing. Like, Georgia can only take, just like every other school, you can only take 20, 25 guys, right? So it's not like
non-portal, right? Yeah.
Right. And again, with this halo effect, Georgia can't take all of them. Can't take all the best players in the country. There are people that are considering Nebraska right now, I think, that you can directly tie to Dylan Raiola giving Nebraska that credibility in their eyes. And I think you can draw a direct line to that. And I think Nebraska will stand to benefit from that.
And my only take with the Dylan Raiola situation was the opportunity cost. Did you spend too much time recruiting a kid that you ended up not getting, that now you're behind the 8 ball on your 2024 quarterback? And then we find out less than a week later, well, Matt Rhule goes back around, circles around with Daniel Kaelin. Now it looks like Nebraska probably in the driver's seat, the recruitment of Daniel Kaelin. You wouldn't think that he would be making a decommitment as we went through yesterday without knowing that, you know what, I think I have a pretty good idea of where my next stop is going to be, where my next commitment is going to be. You wouldn't think he would go and make something so drastic unless he did that. We went through that pretty extensively yesterday. So now it makes the whole Dylan Raiola situation seem much less significant that he picked somewhere else, that he picked Georgia. The fact that Nebraska put all these man hours into recruiting Dylan Raiola and he doesn't come here. Well, you still get the benefit of getting some added eyes on Nebraska from some high-level talent. And you know what? It still looks like you're going to end up with a quarterback that you really like. So was there anything really lost in the Dylan Raiola recruitment whenever you consider the fact that, you know what? Nebraska is still likely, at least from my eyes, how I see it, going to end up with Daniel Kaelin.
Probably. And he's a good one, too.
Yeah.
I think you outlined a lot of things that are important, Mark, with this recruiting process. I think it was a great look, and all of that is probably true, with the light being shined on Nebraska thanks to Dylan Raiola's engagement. As far as the behavior with the follows and the attention and the fan worship, hey, you want to know how it's going to be the guy if you were to commit in Lincoln? Let's get a little sample. This isn't even a football Saturday, okay? Let's get you to a baseball and a basketball game and see how you like the attention. It's not that there isn't attention in Georgia. It's not that there's not attention at USC or Oregon, but Nebraska is a whole different animal fan base-wise, and it was wise to come here. I mean, he came to Lincoln 6 times during his recruitment. He came to Athens 6 times. The difference is this, and it's Kirby Smart seeing him as a freshman because of Matthew Stafford and Dom's relationship, and that's Georgia as a freshman. Dylan Raiola seeing the kid going, wow, this kid could be something. Let's get him back to campus, and then let's offer him. They were the first to offer him. They've been on him. They didn't know he was going to be the number 1 player in the country.
Yeah. They lost Chris for a second there.
Through a family connection, and that's all you really need to know. The fact that they've won 2 championships after the fact they offered him and worked him out before any other program in the country is the real point to me. The fact he's deciding to go to a place that also took the number 12 quarterback in the country, have another 5-star competing for the job, and then there's 4 other 4 or 5-star quarterbacks in that room at a program that just started a walk-on 2 consecutive years, who fended off every 5 and 4-star they've brought in that led them to 2 national championships. So when he talks about culture at Georgia and standard at Georgia, it's very real. Whether you're a walk-on named Stetson that won the job and won 2 championships, or you're the next 5-star that goes in there, it ain't given. It's got to be earned. I love that about him when we look at this decision to go to Georgia. The fact he gave Nebraska the time of day, family. But Rule and Nebraska did a hell of a job keeping his mind open to Nebraska for as long as they did.
Right now, Georgia is ranked as the #1 recruiting class in the SEC and nationally for the class of 2024. They have another quarterback in that class. We'll see if he sticks. Ryan Puglisi, 6'2.5", 200-pound kid out of Connecticut. He's a 4-star. And then listen to their roster, and you just alluded to it. But you have Brock Vandegrift, 5-star, redshirt sophomore, right? And when we say 5 stars, people also have to understand there's like, how many 5 stars are there per year? Like 50, maybe? Something like
handful,
that. It's a really low number.
Somewhere in the
really low.
I think it's like the 30 range. You get somewhere around 30.
Yeah, because you can be a top 100 player in the country and not be a 5-star, right? Like 5 stars is really elite. So they have him, redshirt sophomore. So a guy that's been, obviously in the program a couple years. You have another guy named Gunnar Stockton, who's a redshirt freshman, who's a 4-star. You have Carson Beck, who's a redshirt junior, also a 4-star. And then you got Muschamp's boy, Jackson Muschamp, lowly 3-star redshirt junior. So you have 4 of those guys already. You got another 4-star coming in, and then now you got Raiola. So you're talking about 6 dudes that are going to be competing for this job. Nobody is a senior, right? On the best team in America, back-to-back national titles. I say that because it's not like he's getting handed the job, and he knows that. And if you also look, it'd be really interesting to go back and look at the actual data on it. But it's got to be like, if you look at the playoffs alone, isn't it probably like 50% of those players in the playoffs last few years have been transfers at some point? That could be off, but it feels like quarterback in particular
is a transfer a lot of times.
Man, it's well north of 50% of starting quarterbacks. Has to be, right? 50% of starting quarterbacks in Division I football.
Oh, okay.
Or in Power 5 transfers.
Let's just look at the list. Let's look at the last few quarterbacks. Tua didn't transfer. Trevor Lawrence didn't transfer. Jalen Hurts did transfer.
Yep.
Kyler
Murray transferred.
Kyler Murray is a transfer, right, from A&M.
Fields was a transfer.
Transfer from Georgia to Ohio State. Joe Burrow is a transfer.
Yep. See what I'm saying? Like,
the transfers from Georgia or Ohio State.
Right? It's a transient position. And Nebraska playing their cards right with him, treating him well, making sure he knows he's like, dude, it's not like it used to be where it's like, well, he committed, see you later, good riddance. It's like, hey, maybe see you in a couple years. You might go there and hate it. He might go there and be stuck behind another 5-star. He might be 3 years into his tenure, still not win the job, kind of like a Joe Burrow, and just be like, you know what, I'm out. Where do you think he's going to look first?
Or on the flip side, though, as we welcome in Brandon Vogel here, he could win the starting job his freshman season and never look back at Georgia, and Husker fans will always be sad that they didn't get Dylan Raiola. We don't know. The college career of Dylan Raiola is so up at the air. I'm not going to sit here and predict, 50% of kids are going into the transfer portal. It's a case you wish Dylan Raiola the best. I hope Dylan Raiola doesn't transfer. I hope he goes to Georgia and wins 4 national titles. Good for him.
Whose side are you on? This is the Hail Varsity morning radio audio thing. This isn't the dog pound.
The weekend edition of Hail Varsity Radio. As we say hi to Brandon Vogel. Vogues, is that a Hawaiian shirt?
It is a Hawaiian shirt. It's a little dark and gray here today, so I decided to brighten things
up. You're talking about the weather, not the show, I hope.
Yes, the weather.
How do you feel about Elijah being just a devout Georgia fan on this show?
Well, I mean, I find it odd that he's wearing what seems to be a Tim Tebow shirt, which would lead me to believe he's a Florida fan. But either way, it's not good. I
think he's more just SEC.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever sat next to Elijah at a game? It's a Big Ten game, and he's just over there chanting SEC, SEC. It's odd.
It just means more.
We've always said Elijah is the SEC chant if the SEC chant was a human. It was a tough day for Elijah yesterday. Saw a quarterback leave the conference, but so it goes.
Well, like, whenever I look at it, though, seriously, with the rival situation, how can you be anything but, like, happy for this kid? I know as a Husker fan, you wish he comes to Nebraska, but I look at this and I go, this is the guy who is, at the moment, living out his dream. He will, like, you come from a family of offensive linemen, nobody thinks you're going to be a quarterback. Let's be honest with that. Your dad was an NFL offensive lineman. The fact that you're playing the quarterback position in high school, first off, wow, good for you. Like, whenever you come from an offensive line heritage, I'm sure everyone growing up was telling the kid, you're going to be the next great offensive lineman. You're going to be the next great offensive lineman. He has to go do his own thing, become a quarterback, the premier position in football. Becomes one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Then people tell you, go enjoy your recruitment. He went and enjoyed his recruitment to the fullest. He's checking out some of the top schools in the country, Georgia, USC, Oregon. And you know what? You're going to go check out Dad's alma mater. You go to Dad's alma mater, they chant your name at a basketball game. Like, he lived to the definition of enjoying his recruitment, and then at the end of it all, he gets to go to the team that is currently in college football, the best team in America. They're coming off of multiple national championships. You got to go in there and be their top quarterback, go play with some of the top players in the country, and give yourself what we can assume to be a great shot at going and making the NFL should you go win the starting job. I don't think you can be anything but, like, happy for a kid that's gone out and is fulfilling his dream. Sure, you want him to be a Husker, but good for that kid. He's going out and just living the dream of not only a lot of football players around the country, just a lot of people around the country. It's as simple as that. Like, so many people dream of being a top quarterback in the country growing up. He is living that dream. He's going to the top program in the country, and if things work out at Georgia, he's going to go be a first-round draft pick most likely. Good for him.
It is good.
And it's easier to say now with Nebraska likely going to be able to get the in-state kid in Daniel Kaelin. It makes the sting of losing Dylan Riley hurt a little bit less. And sure, you can hold on in your back pocket. Maybe Nebraska gets him in the transfer portal. For his sake, I hope he never enters the transfer portal. Like, from a Husker point of view, it'd be great to get Dylan Riley on campus and be your quarterback. From his point of view, if you're, like, truly happy, like, sure, he's a legacy kid. You hope the best for him. He gave Nebraska the time of day. I hope he wins that starting job his freshman year, goes and has 3 years of success and goes off to the NFL. That'd be the best thing for him. And you know what? If you're being authentic as a Husker fan and someone who supports Nebraska, you say, go make the best choice for yourself, and hopefully it all turns out. I don't think you can hope for anything more for the kid. Like, go out and succeed.
I need to defend Elijah here just for a moment here with this SEC blanket they're throwing over you.
Yeah.
Kraynak, how many Atlanta hats do you have? I know it's not a Georgia program, but I mean your flag's waving dirty South a lot with your Atlanta fandom. I mean, is it just coverage for true Georgia fandom?
No. Listen, that is a deep track accusation that I'm not going to sit here and take. That is not good. And Elijah, enough with this balanced, healthy, good human being outlook. All right, knock that crap off. This is about football and winning, not about being a good person. My goodness, that's too good of an outlook on life. No, the Atlanta stuff is just because, you know, growing up, Elijah wouldn't know this because he's just half our age. That's hard to say out loud, but it's true. When you growing up, you had the Cubs on WGN every day, and then you had the Braves on TBS every day. Each of their games. So those were the teams that you saw all the time.
Our babysitter.
Like,
must be Frank after school.
Yeah, except for like once a week. And a lot of people liked the Cubs, but I didn't like the Cubs because the Cubs didn't win. I thought Harry Carey was weird. I wasn't a fan, right? Braves, though. Dale Murphy, come on now. Dale Murphy was a freaking stud. And they also sucked at that time. But So yeah,
then they didn't.
It has nothing to do with Georgia. Nothing.
Okay. Vogues.
Yeah. Dale Murphy responded to me on Twitter one time, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going to bed. I'm
going to get off the app.
I've achieved it. I've achieved what I was meant to do, and that's
Vogues,
interact with Dale Murphy.
Let's get back to football, and I know you're excited that you spent the last 10 minutes with us. But the football part of this, Nebraska, I don't want to say needed a recruiting win this week. It's yet to be seen if they're able to completely flip Kaelin. That's what's pointing in that direction, you would think, though. But you have the Raiola situation that is Monday, and behind the scenes, Nebraska's probably doing the math, saying this isn't trending the right way, and it had been some time post-spring game. Where are we at with Raiola? What are we going to do with quarterbacks? We need to move on because I don't think we're going to get him. That's the thought bubble. And then you have the Rizak commitment to Notre Dame. And you and I know, so is Kraynak and Elijah, that it hurts to lose out to somebody, and then it really hurts to lose out an in-state kid. That is a very raw subject. And you have more and more in-state kids that are getting courted by some of the who's who of college football. And these in-state kids haven't had a chance to see Nebraska do a lot, right? It's another head coach. It's another new regime. So if Nebraska is to flip Kaelin from Missouri as he's decommitted, Nebraska kind of needed this. I mean, this turns the conversation back towards, okay, so Nebraska may have this recruiting win after a couple of missteps during the honeymoon period. Missteps probably the wrong word. Nebraska, I think, did everything in their power to get Raiola. And when it comes to Rizak and Nebraska, I think Nebraska is like, we needed to be better at following up and more diligent trying to get him.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to change the conversation relatively quickly if they were able to pull this flip off. I spent most of the week saying, buckle up for, it's probably in Nebraska's best interest to go slow with this QB scenario, and knowing that two of the guys, Kaelin being one of them, that the staff had sort of some connection with, were both already committed elsewhere. I was like, let this thing go into the fall and see what happens at a Missouri or at a South Carolina. Things can change really, really rapidly, and you might find yourself in the market again with those guys if they decide to open up their commitment. Well, it just happened to happen yesterday, so forget all that. You don't have to worry about waiting to at least enter the Kaelin sweepstakes again. And so we'll see what happens. I do think Nebraska's in a pretty good spot there. It would scratch the in-state itch as well. So it's the thing with recruiting. Everything is either super high or super low, and they change pretty quickly, particularly around this time in the month of June when you tend to get a lot of commits.
Johnny in the stream says Elijah has that dog in him. Ms. Monstrosity says Elijah likes to hear himself talk. Rick says Eli is awesome.
All three. I can confirm all three of these. Yeah, I got that dog in me. I like to hear I'm in radio. Of course, I like to hear myself talk. Like, that's part of the job. Like, I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah, they can all do it. I mean, Danny Kaelin's decommitment from Missouri, Brandon, it's I think logical to jump to that conclusion that, okay, he's the next one in the boat. We'll see if that's actually true, but signs are pointing that way. What do you think that says, by the way, for the, I guess, recruiting style of Matt Rule and his staff, and maybe what they've been talking to Danny Kaelin about behind the scenes, that this would even be a possibility at this stage?
For it to happen this quickly, it tells me that the recruiting process with him must have been pretty transparent. And he, needed to make his decision on his timeline. And you think about it from Nebraska's point of view, it's not just that Dylan Raiola is the number one player in the country. His uncle's on staff. Like, so you kind of got multiple reasons there that you're like, if you're going to get in this race, you got to go to the finish. Like you kind of got to wait for him. And Nebraska
he's a legacy.
did. And he's a legacy. Yes.
Yep.
And Nebraska did. Georgia came in first. And once that happened, I didn't take it for granted. I certainly didn't assume that the case would be like, well, they'll go back to Kaelin and say, hey, just so you know, you're our top guy again, and things would flip that quickly. But that they did, I think, speaks pretty well to how this coaching staff recruited him. And I don't know. I wasn't in the room for those things, of course. But look at what's transpired. I think it tells you quite a bit.
So you don't think this could be a concern moving forward with this style of in-state recruiting? Because that was the complaint against other coaching staffs in the past, especially I remember the Mike Riley years, because my high school years, it felt like that was a staff that was going to go after the out-of-state kids first, and you know what, we're going to fall back on the in-state kids because we'll throw them a late offer, and they'll come to Nebraska because Nebraska is the school they've always dreamed of coming to. That was a big critique of the Mike Riley years, the fact that you expected that you could just throw these kids a late offer and they're going to commit because they're Nebraska kids. Is that not a warning sign for you, the future, that Nebraska was going after an out-of-state kid, you know what, and then as soon as you learn he's not coming, you're going to come back around to the in-state kid. No, he'll decommit from wherever he is and he'll come to Nebraska. That was part of it to me whenever I read into this. Like, yeah, he's coming to Nebraska, but I'm not sure this is a great strategy for long-term success, of in-state recruiting.
Yeah, I think that's a concern generally. Like, that would not be a smart strategy to slow play your in-state guys to see if you can do quote unquote better elsewhere. That said, it's not a concern for me with this staff right now for a couple of reasons. One, I think, is all of the context around the Raiola thing. Two, I think it's hard to judge in-state recruiting at this early stage for a staff. Like, these 2024 kids, they were either recruited by the previous staff or they weren't, and the new staff is trying to get in with them, or, they're stepping into the river, midstream here with 2024 kids. And I think they have been out in front, pretty well with some guys in future classes. So this scenario in particular doesn't give me concerns for mostly those reasons. Like, now, if we get 3-4 cycles down the road and it does seem like, yeah, they're gonna slow play the in-state kids, which I don't think they're gonna do, then yes, I think that does become an issue.
This staff, to me, is so involved with research. I mean, they're going to do the process they need to do to evaluate. And that's the big thing, man, is you can't whiff on your evaluation and not make it okay through a walk-on or the portal. You have chances to fix missteps, but this staff is not going to take for granted the Nebraska products. And they're going to probably treat it a little differently than past staffs just because they're not from here. So they've got to be even more familiar with the high schools, the coaches, the programs, the kids. I mean, they're going to work even more thoroughly, you would think, to be right. And the borders, as Danny Nee said to us last week, are open in the state of Nebraska, because guess what? I mean, how many freaking dude programs were watching Carter Nelson yesterday? All of them. I mean, Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Auburn. Auburn must have some sort of extended stay rate in the metro. Okay, I mean, they're in here. Oklahoma's come in. Iowa's been doing it for years, and they've gotten really good players. So I think the staff will absolutely not take the Nebraska kid for granted, and they're going to win with Nebraska kids. That's their hope, but they're going to do it through getting kids on site. Let's test them. It doesn't matter if you're from Nebraska or from Texas You better be able to hit a certain number on the old radar gun speed-wise, because that's what they're building this around. Good comment here from Ken. Start winning again, and the in-state kids will take care of itself. Ken, you're on the money. That's the other thing, is you have years of Nebraska not bowling. So growing up, maybe you went to a game, but how much winning did you see? So it's a weird spot for Nebraska right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think winning would help a lot. That said, anytime you have a first-year coaching staff, like, it's kind of your one window to really sell, like, the vision of, like, oh, we're coming here to be national champions in 4 years. And, 4 years down the line, you either will have been or you won't have been. So you can't keep selling that. But I think, like, the point here with whether it's, winning takes care of itself, I think underscores a key piece of this is because the staff is new. There's no way for the in-state piece of it to be an advantage for them yet, because they're just a new staff. They could be the staff at TCU or SMU or, anywhere else really. And when you haven't seen that success, it's not like the curb appeal of a Georgia or an Alabama, where it's like, wow, they've offered me a scholarship. If I go there, odds are really good I'm going to win a bunch of football games. So it's just it's tough for the in-stateness of it, I think, to show up at this stage for this coaching staff.
Brandon, you've been going through and working on previews for the Hail Varsity yearbook and looking at a lot of different Big Ten, a lot of Nebraska's opponents, looking at the Big Ten. I'm not asking for a specific number here. I wouldn't put you on the spot in that way. But if you were to handicap it, guess your best guess, how many programs in the Power 5 or from the teams that you've just looked at, what's the percentage of those teams that have a transfer quarterback as their presumed starter? Is it north of 50%? It seems like it would be.
Well, I have my notebook with my Big Ten teams here, at least. I can tell you right now, with Northwestern's recent transfer, the only team in the West that's not going to start a transfer quarterback this year, most likely, is Minnesota. So that's 1 out of 7.
Wow.
Indiana could start a transfer. It's a 2-man race. Maryland, no. Michigan, no. Michigan State.
Well, with Maryland, isn't Talia a transfer from like 3 years ago?
Well, he is, yes.
Yeah.
But because it's 3 years ago, I count him as a returning starter. He's a Terp. He's a Terp. Ohio State, no. I think they're homegrown. Penn State, no. Rutgers, no. So not really neat. So, yeah, probably about 50% of the Big Ten. And I'm guessing that probably holds for most of the Power 5 conferences off the top of my head.
Yeah, with the insinuation there being, that's fine if Dylan Raiola or anybody chooses somewhere else. It's almost a 50-50 shot that they're going to leave at some point. And you have to like Nebraska's chances if that was to happen, right? So it's so different now where it's you can't you got to maintain that relationship, right? And you got to wish those guys well, because they're more likely than not to be on the market again in a couple years.
Carson Beck looked really good in that Georgia spring game. Say that. I mean, he's a redshirt sophomore, so it's possible. Like, if Georgia wins the 3rd straight national title and he, takes advantage of the copious amounts of talent around him, maybe he's headed to the NFL draft next April. That's possible, but yeah, it gets. I mean, you almost have to think of it that way. Of in today's game, we went after this quarterback, really wanted him, didn't get him. Maybe we'll see him in a couple of years.
Well, the other part of this, too, is he's a redshirt sophomore, and he stayed to get developed. I mean, there's a lot of kids after their freshman year that bolt. There's a lot of kids after their redshirt freshman year, 2 years in the program, that bolt. I want to put a bow on the recruiting thoughts here, Vogues, with if you can get kids that are in-state kids, maybe they're more prone, and I don't know, is rampant as transferring is. But if you get a kid that wants to be a Husker or pick another in-state kid from another program, that attachment may be a little bit deeper. Let's give it an extra year. Let's stick around. And I think that's one thing that Elijah and I were talking to Coach Barnett about 2 weeks ago. How do you build that quarterback room if you're Nebraska? Well, Coach Barnett was adamant you build it with talented kids, yes, but you build it with in-state kids. And you've got Harburg, okay? And Harburg's been here for a while, but he is not shopped around that we know of. And he's still here to try and, win the backup job and get groomed because he is a Nebraska kid. It means a little more to be a Nebraska kid to stay in Lincoln. If you go get Kaelin, that's a second quarterback you get in the room potentially at some point that's a Nebraska kid. So that's not a bad plan to have one of the most important positions on the field be a homegrown kid.
No, I think, with the talent the state of Nebraska has been putting out at quarterback lately, I think that becomes a much more viable strategy going forward. But even if it weren't, even if we're talking about 5-6 years ago, I mean, Riker Fife is a good example. I mean, a walk-on, but like Nebraska needed him at times. And, would you have liked to maybe have, a scholarship quarterback start some games for you? I mean, Riker Fife started a bowl game, had to start that Troy game in Frost's first season. But, like, if you can count on guys like that to be here, and I mean, like, it's been a while since I've looked at this, but, like, I tried to kind of model attrition probability, and this was pre-transfer portal, but, like, literally, like, the further you get from Lincoln, the odds go up that a guy's going to transfer. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, as I think I wrote it in the story when I did that for the magazine, like, it's a lot harder to get homesick when you're from Grand Island and you're in Lincoln than it is, if you're in Paramus, New Jersey. And that's what you're used to and you grew up with. So it's just, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And, I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but, like, particularly a quarterback where you need depth and it's probably the hardest to hold on to, makes a ton of sense to seek out some in-state guys that you think can do the job if you needed them to.
Now, Brandon, look, we've talked extensively this morning about the one who got away, obviously. But take all that aside and look at Nebraska, who they have remaining and who is the presumed starter, and that is Jeff Sims. Is it hyperbole to say he is about as athletic and gifted? This doesn't mean he's going to be the next Heisman, but as just physically gifted as really you could hope for as an athlete, almost period. I'm so impressed by him physically with his just sort of flick of the wrist, that Michael Vick kind of just like you flick the wrist and it's on a bullet 40 yards downfield. Like, that kid has exceptional tools. Is that something that you agree with there? And do you think it can be honed to where he has that statistical year that he wasn't really able to pull off at Georgia Tech, where he was kind of running for his life with regularity?
Yeah, I remember the recruitment of Sims because he was like a huge get for Georgia Tech early in Jeff Collins' tenure. He was kind of like the guy that signaled, and I don't know if it was after Collins' first year or going into it, but it was a big recruiting win. I think Sims had a Georgia offer. If I'm not messing that up, I could be. Don't quote me on that. But I remember him. Was kind of like the dual threat guy. Really high four-star recruit. And you kind of, especially that first season at Georgia Tech, which was probably his best season, which is, one of the reasons I don't just kind of pencil in that, this is going to be the year it clicks for him, was kind of a running threat as much as anything. But hearing some people talk about him since he's arrived at Nebraska, like, and what the kind of the NFL people talk about is his throwing ability. So you're right. So I think he is up there, and I kind of lost track of him a little bit at Georgia Tech. I didn't watch a ton of Georgia Tech games over the past 3 seasons, but saw some. And it was just like, man, this team has struggled to put it all together, much like Nebraska did over that stretch. So it's there. The physical talent is certainly there, and you're hoping it's kind of the marriage of right staff, right scenario, right time, because I do think he's a guy who still has pretty high NFL potential.
I've got the Jeff Sims rundown here. So you go back to 2018. You've got Central Florida getting that first official. Make that unofficial visit. You've got Miami, you have Louisville, you have Florida, you have Cincinnati. An official offer from Georgia came in 2019. An official offer from Penn State came in January of 2019. And then you have his junior day time with Florida State, an offer from Virginia Tech. Tennessee offered in 2019.
Jeez.
Committed after going to Tennessee to Florida State February 2nd of 2019. And was all in on Florida State. And then Georgia Tech came in late, got an official visit while he was committed to Florida State, and took an official. Loxley was in there, got him to visit in 2019. Committed to Florida State in 2019, and then flipped a week later from Florida State to Georgia Tech right before signing day.
So everybody was on him. And kind of related to that, Brandon, something that I really pay attention to what Rule talks about. And if you're going to take him at his word, he has mentioned in multiple interview settings, hey, look what we did at Temple. That's a similar blueprint that you can expect to run at Nebraska. I've gone back and watched a lot of Baylor. I've not watched a lot of Temple. I don't know if you have. If you have, okay. So what is that offense? I
was going to say I have not, and then I cut myself off.
I cut you off. Okay.
So,
my bad.
But it is Temple Saturday. The way Vogues is rocking the Hawaiian shirt, so he may get on that.
It's on my list. Once we get through the yearbook, that's kind of my summer vacation. We'll probably go back and watching some of those Temple teams. Great uniforms during that era at Temple as well.
Really?
So visually appealing. But yeah, I haven't dug that much into it. I know just hearing from Rule talk about it, like he admits, they tried to go really spread, I think, early on, and that was kind of a mistake. And they dialed it back and, had some QB run elements and really kind of put the focus on the run game. And we know in the Big Ten, like, if you can run the football consistently and you got a quarterback that's good in the play action game, like it's chocolate and peanut butter. It's kind of the classic football combo, but that's the Big Ten.
Yeah. And Temple was nothing. Like, kind of didn't hear anything about Temple before or after Rule was there. So whatever he instituted worked. And it worked pretty well.
Al Golden did well enough to get the Miami job at least.
That's true.
And Steve Adazio was there, which was like he was there for a short span, kind of kept up like whatever Golden did. But even like, it's relative, right? If you go back and look at Al Golden's record at Temple, which I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, it's not going to like knock your socks off. It's going to be like, okay, this was a program that was really, really down, and he got them to competitive, and you become kind of that G5 hot coaching property. It's just kind of the natural way things go.
So some quick numbers here that I just want to bring up because I think it's somewhat enlightening, because Ed Foley was there with him also at Temple and doing special teams there, I believe, and he's here now. So some quick numbers. Temple was 4.3 a carry, and this is 2016, so Rule's last year, the one that got him the Baylor job, essentially. 4.3 yards a carry. Opponents were 3.5. In terms of run-pass split, looks like 564 rushing attempts, 403 passing. So it was tilted in favor of the run game. 5.99 yards per play. And then this one stands out too. Punt return yards, 10.5. punt return yards a game. That's not nothing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty good, right?
Yeah,
and then just kind of
that's really run heavy. That's like 60%.
Yeah, right. And then they only lost 6 fumbles in the game. Time of possession was 33 to 26 ish. I mean, yeah, it looks like just a pretty run heavy team that played some ball control and didn't turn it over a whole lot. And I do know from, the talk about the fullback and all the glory that's gotten recently, that's real, right? They did some eye, they did some offset eye, and they're pretty committed to running the ball. So I think that's music to the ears of folks here.
I think we nailed it. If you run the football well, get some yards and special teams, don't turn the ball over, and keep your defense off the field for less than half the game, you might be able. I think you can win some football games there. I think. No,
Brandon, you just drop back and just throw it.
Well,
that's
Mark,
all you do.
The stat that stood to me, you say it was 6 fumbles lost throughout the entire year.
Yeah,
I very distinctly remember a Husker game where they lost 6 fumbles in one game.
Right?
It's pretty incredible. Yeah. That was almost 15 years ago now, but still, that one still stands out in my memory as how shocking that was. Like 6 fumbles in a year, though, that's how you win football games. You win time and possession.
This is what's interesting, too, right? Because that's like overtime, that's a 50-50 proposition, right? Fumbles and fumbles lost. They fumbled it 15 times, only lost it 6. Conversely, opponents, 32 fumbles. Right. So that tells you that defensively, too, he values strafing and, going after the football in that way, too. That's good.
Bogues, weekend is what for you as we say goodbye, and thanks for an extended sit down with us. This was a lot of fun to talk recruiting and fumbles and Hawaiian shirts and all things Nebraska here. I want you to go back and check out the story to help put you to sleep tonight of the Iowa-Nebraska rivalry in my backyard between my neighbor and me. That's where it's heading.
I will do that. The weekend for me is yearbook. A lot to do. Increasingly fewer days to get it all done. We're where we need to be in terms of all that, but it's just starting to feel the pressure a little bit, but it's good. I'm excited to continue to work on that. Probably have to go to the park at some point, given that my 2-year-old, it's the first thing he says when he wakes up and the first thing he says before he goes to sleep. So take a park break, but other than that, I'm looking at Indiana, Maryland, probably Michigan State previews today.
Is he a big swing or a slide guy? Swings over slides, but swings are a heavy favorite in that one, which he'll swing for like 30 minutes if I can last that long. But, that's awesome.
For him.
Do you get a running start to see how much air he can get?
No. I try to keep it safe for now, but we might have to reach into scare tactics just to reduce my total park time.
Be the last time he wakes up saying, "Take me to the park."
Way to learn him.
Brandon Vogel with us. At Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter is where you find him. Get the subscription today. Get the yearbook ordered when you subscribe to Hail Varsity. The digital is awesome. The print, incredible. HailVarsity.com/offer. Bogues, we appreciate you much, man. Thank you for spending time.
Thanks, guys.
It's some overtime in Vogel. Thank you, Brandon.
Yep, there he is.
I like Rick in the stream, by the way.
That's
bringing
so
it back
funny.
full circle. Make your neighbors some special brownies. Let me try those first. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how effective they are.
So this is funny. This is funny. And
He does need to chill out a little bit. He does need to chill out. Give him some of those special brownies, and he'll just be like, man, like, dude, I was all mad about your dog, but I mean, it's just natural. He's just being like a wolf, and like that's what they do. And yeah, that'd be good. Chill him out a little bit, because especially since he wears affliction tank tops, and
then you guys can go over there. You can go over there and talk about the Dave Matthews Band concert lineup for the year. Like,
wow. No,
like, bro, have you seen him live though? Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, he's so good live. Like, see, I just think that's probably what needs to happen, because he sounds like he's a little bit more about like pre-workout mix, you know. He's probably a Red Bull guy, I'm guessing. Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Kent says special combo of laxative and hallucinogen.
I mean, good call, Ken. I think you mixed both of them in there.
No, you can tell Ken's had some bad neighbors in his lifetime. He came with that immediately. He knew.
Ken, or I love you, Ken. Ken is the bad neighbor.
Ken, it's all entertainment. It's all entertainment.
Yes. Please don't do it. Please don't do it.
Speaking of
I like that combination though, because think about it, like
laxatives and hallucinogens. Yeah.
Well, if you get the munchies, you know, it'd be good to have a little help getting that stuff out, right? Like, so it's a good. That's doing him a solid.
The combination of laxatives and hallucinogens, you will find God in that bathroom.
Right.
Give a quick shout out to Lincoln East.
I was just gonna go there. I was gonna say, speaking of entertainment, what a damn game that was last night.
I saw some highlights. Yeah.
And this is the Lincoln East baseball team winning the Class A state championship. And I read something, it was on a message board, so don't judge me on the accuracy of this, but it was something like a Lincoln school hadn't won the Class A state title since 1977?
Yes, 77 was the year. And
is that real?
A Lincoln school hadn't even played in the Class A state title game dating back to Southwest, and I think 2013, I think, was the year Southwest made it in the Class A state title game. But yeah, it's been a drought.
So it's been dominated by the metro area. Grand Island snuck in there a couple times, I'm sure, back in the day. Kearney's probably snuck in. Could be wrong on that, but they had like Johnny Dorn at Grand Island who just mowed people down. You know. So it's been dominated by the Millard West, defending champs. They're pumping out 5-ish D1 dudes a year, it seems like. Sounds like Mark spent some time with hippies, says Anthony in the stream. Anthony Sargent, by the way. Our boy Ted Sargent. Yeah. Anthony, are you related? You might be related to Ted, who was
I want to go back and see Ted. I want to go back to Ireland.
He was our wonderful host in Ireland, and he has family here. Just as luck would have it, he has family here. So you might be related to a dude in Dublin, Anthony. And then Moonbot, microdosing mushrooms is huge in Denver with all ages right now.
A fun activity with the kids.
Yeah, and it's legal. It's legal there. That's the difference. Chris is not going to make these special brownies. He would not do that. That's illegal. We do not condone that. I have not spent time with hippies. Okay, maybe I have. That's another show.
None of us were around the last time a Lincoln team won state baseball.
That's crazy.
And I want to give a quick shout out to Troy Peltz, the Peltz family, great folks. Troy made an insane throw from left field to get the cut down the run that would have. Forgive me. Was that in the seventh?
It was bases loaded with one out in the seventh. That run would have won the game.
That's what I thought.
Was it on a pop-up, like a tag?
No, it was a tag from third to get home.
Yes.
So Troy tracked it down in left field, made the catch. Kevin Suits, our dear friend at 1011, has video of it, so check out Kevin's Twitter.
And this wasn't one of the ones where he gets to camp under the fly ball and get a running start.
He had to kind of run it down, didn't he?
He had to run it down and then quickly turn and absolutely cannon it to home plate, and what a throw it was.
And Troy grew up playing basketball with Carson, so we know the family that way. So it's awesome to see some of those kids grow up, as they say.
To this day, as a marginal former outfielder, the absolute best feeling in baseball, period, is gunning somebody out from the outfield. Like, there is nothing in baseball that competes with that.
Imagine
walk-off homer.
I mean, well, I never got to experience that, so so I'm sure that's cool too.
But think about
within the normal course of a game. Gunning somebody out from the outfield is just
and what shocks me about that is it's the seventh inning. the ball comes off the bat and you have to quickly have that realization of, oh, this is like, it's on me to save my team season right now. Like the ball's in the air and like these thoughts are going like, you have to catch it, make the play. That's the 7th inning. If I don't gun this kid down, it's game over. We lose. The whole team goes home sad. You have all these thoughts going through your head and you're able to make that play, put that all aside. Like, what a play it was. And quick trivia question for you guys. Do you guys know which Lincoln High School it was that won the state title back in 1977?
Well, back then there would have only been Southeast, Northeast, High, and East. Right?
Was it Southeast?
So,
it was Lincoln Southeast. They took down in 1977 Papillion by a final score of, I believe, 5-2.
Wow. That's impressive. But it is surprising just being on the youth baseball circuit now. Lincoln's got, my kid's heavily involved in that. I'm assistant coach on one of the teams, so you get to see, and like there are some really solid clubs out of Lincoln. So it's just surprising that, that it hasn't led to a state championship yet, right? Yeah. Now, it is a little bit different in Millard, though, in particular. Some folks don't know this, but each of those schools are, 2,000 or more enrollment. So huge enrollment. And the baseball programs, the clubs have been well established. I mean, you go back to like Bill Olson, Hall of Fame guy in Nebraska. His son Greg Olson was a major leaguer, all-star.
Northwest, right?
He started pace setter, if I'm not mistaken, or he's been heavily involved in it. He started pace set like back before clubs were even a thing. He's started that up, and pace setter has been, I mean, they kind of live up to their name. They're fantastic. They won like their 14U team last year as an example, won the Slump Buster tournament. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but that's like the huge tournament that happens around the College World Series where there's like 400 teams that come in from all over the country. So some really, really strong national elite programs. Pacesetter 14U won that last year.
That's awesome.
Right? And then they send like 3 or 4 dudes to Millard South, 3 or 4 dudes to Prep, another couple guys to Millard West. And all those kids end up playing like JV, like when they're fresh, so it's a factory. And played 80-some games last year. And
your incredible stat of the day is that in the past 13, so dating back to 2010, that's 13 Class A state title games, a Millard school has been represented in that game in 10.
Jeez.
10 of the last 13 years.
Millard North, colleague Nick Hanley, he and Brian Paul, those guys were on the staff of Millard North for a time where they went undefeated and had like, Connor Gillespie, Casey Gillespie, guys who ended up in the pros. So that's impressive. Like, so when you're a Lincoln school, you're going against that, right? You're going against kids that have like played 700 some games at an elite level going back to when they were like 8.
No,
it's tough.
The feeder program's so important. I mean, can you get on a squad with your travel ball? How much travel ball do you get to experience over a summer, and what's the level you're playing at? Do you develop, and can you get a shot? And it's a battle. I mean, it's an absolute battle to make squads in the Omaha, everywhere, but it is in Omaha, and I'm not knocking it. I'm saying the competition level is super high. It's that way in Lincoln too. I mean, we're really thankful that Junior made JV. So because of how much talent there is at his school. It's and you get to see it, firsthand, Elijah, up at a lot of these games.
We've talked about before, like the golden age right now of all these high school football players in Nebraska, all these schools coming in from across the country. You can say the same for high school baseball in the state right now. There is D1 kids everywhere from the metro, Lincoln, down to small towns around the state as well. There is D1 talent everywhere. Even if some of these guys don't end up making D1, I guarantee a few of them will go JUCO and get drafted to go transfer up into a Power 5. Nebraska and the baseball talent in the state of Nebraska right now is a really, really, really high level, and you wonder if Nebraska and the Husker baseball team is going to be able to capitalize that in the coming years.
I mean, Millard South's got a kid that's going to Vandy and is probably going to crack the rotation right when he gets there. And you mentioned the small towns. That's an interesting thing too. Like the advent of access to facilities and pretty quality coaching. Like even like Waverly and Ashland, they have quality, like good program. Bennington is another one.
Yes.
Gretna. Yeah. So some of these schools that are just on the periphery of the Lincoln and the Omaha metros, kind of like Millard was back in the day, right? Of being like the school just outside of it. Those schools are starting to come on, and they have access to really good facilities in the winter, right? Where they're, able to get training in year round. I mean, you're right. The level is much better. Now look, there's a certain pay for play thing going on, obviously with, there is some of that, but man, you go up to Ultimate Baseball Academy sometime, right? Taking my boy there up just to get some cuts before, and there's kids, like the amount of money in it's ridiculous. And there's kids that are like 10 that have major league quality uniforms. They have rolling backpacks, all matching, stitched, the size of the kids, and they're in full uniform at practice, indoor, able to get all the stuff done that they need to.
I'm looking for I'm looking for major league quality spider tack and amphetamines for Junior. So
maybe get a bottle of Jobu's rum too.
Yeah.
Get him diagnosed with ADHD, man, and then he can get Adderall legally, and then he's
he's safe.
It's like
we got a script.
Yeah. Boom.
Most accurate comment though in the StreamYard that we have seen all day comes from Rick. Life would really suck without sports. You can say that again, Rick, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's true because, it's kind of our soap opera, right? Like,
it's about.
I always clown the ladies at work and and in life, period, that are just all about like the coronation and entertainment and like who's marrying who, and you're just like, who cares, right? But then here we are. What's Dylan Raiola doing? Where's he going? He's a senior in high school. Oh my God, who's talking? Like, we're dorks about it. We're absolute.
Yeah.
We're just like them. We're just like the ladies that talk about some entertainment crap and some coronation. Did you guys watch the coronation? Did you guys watch that? Good.
No, thank God.
Me either. Thank God. That's good. Yeah. Apparently, there's a king over there.
We had a whole Revolutionary War to distance ourselves from them. Like,
I know.
I had to spend time on Meghan and Harry yesterday morning.
What? Why?
Well, for the morning.
What's going on with them? No, what's going on with them, Chris? Like, you can tell, you're our window into that. Now, you as the morning host of KFOR, get exposed to like worldly stuff. Tell us what's going on outside of sports here.
No, no, they're making a big deal about paparazzi following them, and they're fighting over. Okay, this
did not work out well.
Camera shot. No, I know, and that's
like, I mean that
respectfully, yeah. No, and that's the thing, but they're absolutely, in my humble opinion, attention-seeking whores. So that's what they are. They want to continue to be in the news cycle. That I don't care what you're doing, and don't make yourselves a big deal. Meghan Markle's beautiful. I mean, she's somebody that I don't care if she gets photographed. I mean, she's very, very, very beautiful. Fozzie Bear, the balding redhead, I don't care if I see him or not. I mean, he's the one that had to go sit with the kids' table at the coronation. Okay, I mean, clearly family ain't down with him anymore. So,
but would you want to be a part of that family? Like,
I like how let's just stop here for a second and say we started off with saying I don't care about the royal family, and now we're talking about the royal family.
Now we have deep opinions about them. See, I'm
ticked off.
Harry.
I'm ticked off. I have to. Well, what, the balding redhead thing?
That part. Well, of course, I got a little thing there.
Yeah,
I hatfish people. So like, listen, I empathize with him because he's with these. I mean, those people are weird. The king is not a good person. Obviously, we all know that. Like, it takes all of 4 seconds for our antenna to go up and be like, that dude is not a good dude. So yeah, he doesn't want to be around those folks. I don't blame him for that.
He's still taking their money.
Well, yeah, of course, man. He's royalty, but he seems to be like not about the colonial past. Okay. More than any of them. He's sort of like, yeah, that wasn't really cool that we colonized the world. And kept all the money. Like he seems the most like the biggest conscientious objector of that world, and so that
fair enough. Yeah. We'll be back next week with more football and royalty.
We still got 4 minutes. We still got 4 minutes here to talk royal family.
Who is the royal family of college football? That's got to be a discussion for
okay. Oh, no, that's a good one.
It's the Mannings.
There's not enough of them. There's only
Dad, Grandpa. I should say Grandpa. You have Peyton. You have Eli. Then you have Arch.
College football.
Yeah. I mean,
of college football. Eli didn't leave much of a mark at Ole Miss. I mean, he beat Nebraska, but that was
didn't leave much of a mark at Ole Miss.
Yeah,
I've been to Oxford, Mississippi. They have Eli Manning jerseys hung all around that place.
No, I'm just saying in terms of public notoriety and all that.
I think he brought some swag to him because I don't know that Ole Miss gets, because look at Ole Miss's history, right? They had Houston Nutt, and then they had Ed Orgeron, and then they got Lane Kiffin there. Without Eli Manning 20 years ago, they're probably a 3-9 football program.
I'm not saying he wasn't a good player at Ole Miss. What I'm saying is he didn't captivate the college football world like a Royal at Ole Miss. I think there's zero attention paid to Ole Miss without him there because Peyton didn't go there, and it had been forever. We're talking 50 plus years since Archie was great there.
Well, okay, you guys want to hear a fun fact? If you go down to Oxford, Mississippi, and you spend any time on their campus, especially around the stadium, women. That is true. Of course, they're everywhere. Like, we're not going to get into that right now. The more important thing here is all the roads on campus have the speed limit of 18 miles an hour in honor of the Manning family. Yeah.
Okay, that's something. All right.
Peyton's name's on the football facility. It's the Manning family football facility, and below that it's Archie, Peyton, and Eli. Peyton's included on the football facility name there. Like, the Manning family is Ole Miss.
Okay, that's good. So when you say royal family, I don't necessarily have a better option than those. But here's a dark horse. The Lockett family. How many freaking Locketts were there at K-State? And then even now, I think there's a Lockett son even at this point that's getting it done.
3.
The Locketts.
There's been 3 brothers and the son now.
And they all go to Seattle. So that's a big one.
They're good.
The Rudes would, I guess, be maybe the closest to, like, locally.
Well, think how close we were to the Raiolas being the royal family of Nebraska.
I know. They had their shot. And they blew it.
Well, and I compared briefly and abstractly the Raiolas to the Mannings of Ole Miss. You have Dad, who is a legend around here. The older brother, he's going to go to the top program in the country. He's going to go win a national championship. That's okay. He's going to be the best quarterback in the country. But there's still a little brother coming through that wants to come back and maybe live up to Dad's glory at the old stomping grounds. And the Raiolas, they got a younger brother down there who's going to be the next quarterback in line once Dylan's gone. Does he come back to Nebraska a la Eli coming to Ole Miss?
Is he? And he's class of 26. Is that right? I think he is.
Freshman.
He's class of 26. So actually what's probably going to happen is Dylan is going to not win the starting job at Georgia. He's going to transfer to Nebraska as a third-year player. And then his brother is also going to come up here and be his understudy. Right? This is probably happening. And then Nebraska wins the Big Ten West, if it's still a thing at that time. And we revisit this discussion and anoint them the royal family of college football at that time.
Being a younger brother here, if I'm dating, dude, I'm living in the shadow of my brother right now in high school.
If you're dating a dude? What?
No, if dating Raiola. If you're dating.
Oh.
If you are dating,
Gotcha.
You're currently living in the shadow of your older brother in high school with his recruitment being the number 1 player in the country. The last thing I would do is go to the same place as my older brother. I'd say, love you, big bro, but I am not going to come somewhere else and live in your shadow for another 2 years. And that's kind of why I compare it to the Mannings. Like, Peyton went off to Tennessee, so Eli had less pressure going off to Ole Miss because he's younger brother. Like, he's not living in the shadow of Peyton anymore. He's coming back to be a hometown hero for the Ole Miss Rebels. Does Dayton do the same thing at Nebraska? You know, you didn't get the recruiting fanfare of your older brother.
Yet. The guy's freshman.
Like, if Dylan comes to Nebraska, I'm not going to come sit in his shadow. Personally, I guess I can't speak for the Raiola family one bit, but...
See what I'm talking about? Like, what are we even talking about here? We're talking about kids that don't even have armpit hair yet, and we're like, prognosticating of, how well they're going to do in the Big Ten in a couple years.
This is just like the royal family. You got the kids who don't have armpit hair, and you're discussing how good a king they're going to be in 40 years.
I know. It's kind of weird.
Full circle.
By the way, speaking of Big Ten, I didn't look into like why, but I'm sure it'll come out. But I saw that Mike Bond, the USC athletic director, resigns sort of out of the blue.
Yeah, 4 years. What's going on? Why? And I have not heard anything yet as to what's going on. I know.
I mean, he landed Lincoln Riley, right? He installed the basketball coach against Bronny James, right? It's not. I mean, it's not. And he obviously the AD that was overseeing their transition into the Big Ten. He was at Colorado, wasn't he? Mike
he
Bond?
was there when Barney was there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. So that's something to watch.
Mm-hmm. Mike Bone. So
it's Bone.
Mm-hmm. So
I didn't know that.
Interesting to see what happens there. USC's been through a lot of ADs. Fellas, enjoy the weather. Enjoy the weekend. Kraynak have some good baseball this weekend with Junior. All right.
I kind of don't want this to end, guys. I feel like we're just hitting our stride, but it's what we got to do. It's what we got to do. We'll come back better next week, but
we maybe lost a little bit of focus with the Royals talk at the end. It happens.
I mean, I don't think so. I think it's all connected.
Just weave it on in. But get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the segment or the whole show there for you with Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. And as always, stream it with the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Saturday mornings, weekdays 4 to 6, Monday through Friday as well. And then the Hail Varsity Twitter radio feed at HVarsity Radio. Kraynak, appreciate you, brother. Thanks.
You as well. All right,
Elijah,
fellas.
Take care.
Go Nuggets. Beat LA.
Talk to you on Monday with Hail Varsity. Thanks.